Andy Schmuckler. I've been watching the Israeli-Gaza ugliness for pretty closely since the very beginning on October 7th. But there's a particular event that I want to talk about here momentarily. I've been critical of Israel, highly critical, more critical than I've been in my almost 70 years now, 68 years of following Israel pretty closely. Again and again here, I've been quite critical of the choices that this Israeli government has been making. And I always want to introduce myself as the person who's being critical, as somebody who has a very positive historical feeling about Israel and is believing in its right to survive as a Jewish state in that part of the world. And also having spent some time in the country and found a lot of wonderfulness there. So I don't want my rather profound criticism of this Israeli government to be mistaken for some of the other stuff that we always see about Israel, some of which I think is applying a unique standard to the world's one Jewish state, let's just put it that way. But I've said about this Israeli government that I think it represents the worst in that society, being in charge of that society at a really crucial moment, which is a tragedy, not just for all those Palestinians that are getting killed, but a tragedy also for the Israeli people and the long-term prospects of Israel, and a tragedy for the whole world, which is who knows what the future holds and how things are going to unfold. We'll see how we get out of this situation collectively, because things can get worse always. And which brings me to the particular thing that Israel has recently done that seems apart from the other things that Israel has done, like flattening so much of Gaza so much in pursuit of Hamas, which has deliberately over the years constructed the whole population of Gaza as a human shield for itself. I believe that Israel has essentially willingly jumped into the trap that Hamas, quite clearly as far as I'm concerned, set for them. And when that first occurred, I thought that I looked at the whole situation that Israeli decision makers were in. I thought this is really the most challenging decision-making situation I've ever seen a government in. And I've been in the business of looking at these things for a very long time. And one of the components that made it complex is, okay, you got to do whatever it is that's wisest to do with respect to Hamas. You can't ignore what happened on October 7th, but also one doesn't want to take this situation and translate it into a wider regional war, which was, so how do you do the one without triggering the other? In particular, as people often observe, as bad a threat as Hamas represents, it's really small in comparison with Hezbollah, which is practically the government of Lebanon, but in any event, a very powerful force within Lebanon and an extension of Iranian power, as is Hamas. They all have their degree of autonomy, but they are also instruments of an Iranian design, which is, if we're to take them at their word, they are intending in the long term to wipe Israel off the map. And Hamas has, 100,000, 150,000 missiles, some of which can be very accurate, and they're not all that far away from Israel that they could really make life terrible. So how do you respond to Hamas was an early question without triggering a regional war. So it is in that context that I've wondered, why did Israel attack I've read it called the Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria. I've read it called the Iranian embassy. It is, I think, legally regarded as being, as we have in our worldwide diplomatic set of rules, it's regarded as being not Syrian territory, but that one building, I believe, is regarded as Iranian territory. So why did they attack Iranian territory in the city of Damascus and thereby kill some major Iranian Revolutionary Guards official and a number of other people of some consequence on the Iranian side? And I called a friend of mine who's of all the people that I have that kind of a relationship with, the most expert on international affairs. And I asked him, why would they attack this thing? And he conjectured that maybe it was like such a tempting target that they couldn't resist. But I don't see how that could be. I mean, how important is it to kill a handful of people if it's going to significantly increase the chances of a regional war? And right now you can see in the headlines, from Reuters to the Washington Post and in Israel, there are alarms right now that they assume that the Iranians are going to have to retaliate in some way. And just as what the Israelis, not that the Israelis, by the way, have explicitly acknowledged that they were the ones that launched that attack, but I don't imagine there's any doubt that it was Israelis. They don't always claim. They've launched hundreds and hundreds of attacks on Iranian targets in Syria. Iran and Russia being the two powers that have kept the Assad regime in power despite the civil war that's been raging there since whatever it was, 2011. So the Iranians are trying to use Syrian territory to threaten Israel, and they've been trying to do that for years. The Israelis have been attacking various targets, and usually not saying, yeah, that was us. But assuming that that was them, and I think that's a pretty safe assumption, why would they do it? What was to be gained? It makes one wonder. I had assumed that the Israelis, from the outset, would want to be able to deal with Hamas and the problem of Gaza in a way that didn't widen the war into a regional war. And we've already seen that the Houthis in Yemen have been firing on ships in the Red Sea and also firing rockets toward Israel. So there's and there's been back and forth across the northern border between Israel and Lebanon. Changes, but it's stayed contained, and almost everybody seems to have concluded the Iranians do not want to get into a war with Israel. And even less so do they want to get into a war that would bring the United States in against them, which makes sense to me that they would. But when the Israelis attack this thing, everybody seems to think that the Iranians really have to do something and maybe attack Israel in some way. They've got rockets that would reach Israel. So I believe that the Netanyahu government has done some really blundery things, made some bad decisions. But Netanyahu is not stupid. He may be a sociopath. I see him as a sociopath, but he's not stupid. So he's got to realize that the effect of attacking that building, which I assume that the war cabinet must have approved, would be to put the Iranians in a position where, as everybody's now interpreting, they've got to do something in return. And when they do something in return, are the Israelis going to have to do something in return? So I'm wondering, why did the Israelis do it? Do they want a wider regional war? Wow, that looks really stupid. I don't see what good it does them. Maybe it would distract the world from the ugliness of what the Israelis have been doing in Gaza. But the damage to their worldwide reputation from that has already been done. Anyway, I'm asking a question, and if I knew the answer, I would offer an answer. To me, it's just puzzling, and it seems worth expressing that question because though I follow the news fairly closely from that region, I haven't heard anybody address it. It isn't obvious to me that there was anything to gain by attacking that, killing one major official in the Iranian Revolutionary Guards in exchange for possibly generating a wider war where the Iranians might give Hezbollah the word, yeah, launch all those missiles. I don't see it. And I don't know why it's not being asked. But there is a question there, so I thought I'd ask it. Thanks. I'm Andy Schmuckler. I often call myself a man on a mission, and my mission has got to do with a very big picture about what has happened to our species from the beginnings of civilization, which I think is a crucial point to look at, but all the way up to our present moment, where a lot of the same battles that are going on about whether the human world is going to get more whole or even more broken and destroy itself, that they're all part of the same picture. And I hope if you're interested in seeing that big picture, which is the fruit of my life's work over more than half a century, you'll go to my website, betterhumanstory.org, where I lay things out in as clear and systematic a way as I can. Actually, again and again, for people who really want to see what I think is evident about how we should understand the story of our species and what we are and what the challenges are that we need to meet if human civilization is going to survive for the long haul on this planet and not destroy itself, either in a nuclear holocaust or in bringing the whole biosphere down on our heads. Thanks for listening.